Hi, everyone, and welcome to the EO Wonder podcast. I'm your host, Kalika Yap. On the show, we hear from founders, creatives, and thought leaders who've built businesses with purpose and who keep growing and evolving along the way. Today, I'm excited to welcome Kelley Weaver. Kelley is the founder and CEO of Melrose PR, a leader in blockchain communications since 2016. Her agency has helped shape the way crypto and Web3 companies tell their stories, and Melrose PR was recently named to the 2024 Inc. 5000 list of fastest growing private companies. If you're new to it, Web3 is the next phase of the internet where people have more control over their own data, identity, and digital assets. It's built on blockchain technology, which means ownership is shifting back to individuals, not just big platforms. Kelley's also the host of the Proof of PR podcast and the founder of BitWire, a new digital newswire created to help Web3 companies share their stories with transparency and trust. She brings deep industry knowledge and a real passion for helping innovators build authentic connections. Kelley, welcome to the EO Wonder podcast.
Lika, thank you so much for that amazing introduction and for having me. I've been such a fan of yours for so many years. So I'm so happy to be chatting with you today.
Do you remember when you had that other company? Was it Purse Case?
Purse Case.
I remember. Fellow inventor too.
Yes, I know. We have so much in common and I love it. And we were on a podcast together. Do you remember that? Business Rock Stars?
Yes.
With Ken Rakowski. Yeah, that was so fun.
So fun. So let's start from the beginning. What first pulled you into the world of crypto and blockchain? It's really new for a lot of people, but you were there from the very beginning.
I sort of got bit by the bug and, as so to speak, fell down the rabbit hole. So I launched Melrose in 2012 as more of a consumer-facing PR agency. We did restaurants and consumer products, and that's when we first met, was back then. But I was introduced, I don't know if you remember, but in Southern California where we are, there were so many new startups that were in the tech space in around 2015, 16 time period. That really was new for, I think Snapchat and other companies were the first tech companies around here. And so I had, a business mentor advisor who said, you really should pay attention to this. They could use your services, perhaps, even just community building through events. And so that was something that didn't feel scary to me. I thought, okay, we can probably do that. And so I got introduced to a couple of companies locally that were at, up and coming tech startups. And we started working with them. And one of them was a blockchain company, essentially. And the team was phenomenal, so magnetic to be around. And they really believed in Bitcoin. And so they were kind enough to convince, to sit down and explain it all to me. And I went to a few conferences with them around the country and realized there was really an opportunity to specialize in this industry because there weren't that many reporters covering this technology. And so that's when we really, decided, okay, there's something here where, perhaps we could specialize in this, get to know all the reporters covering this space and really, have a niche. And I think in PR, it's so relationship driven that it's important to have an area of focus. And we had been looking for something to specialize in for years and really tried different things, but this was sort of something where I personally became quite obsessed with Bitcoin and Ethereum and blockchain in general, and then really saw an opportunity to specialize.
So have you always been like this secret techie inside?
No. Not at all. So in fact, 2 years prior to that, I had been doing PR for a local convenience store and they put a Bitcoin ATM in. And at the time, I just didn't understand. I was like, is Bitcoin the company? And we did a couple of ATLA segments and we got great press, but it takes multiple intersections to really understand. And when we started working with this company, Gem, in 2016, that's when they really took the time to explain it to me. So it took multiple intersections. So I'm not a techie at heart at all. In fact, I really like to explain it in a way that everybody can understand.
So, there are a lot of people who know about Bitcoin, but maybe you could just explain to people who are still, putting it, at arm's length.
About Bitcoin specifically,
Yeah.
I mean, I think Bitcoin is digital gold. It's a decentralized asset, a digital asset that you can transact with, and there's no third party that has to validate these transactions. It's this giant network. And so I can send you value, and it's the first time that we've ever been able to do that in a decentralized, fully decentralized networking fashion. And because Bitcoin has a finite supply, there'll only ever be 21 million Bitcoins. Inherently, it's got all these amazing properties like, you know, anti-inflation and things like that, because there's only so much of it. And so as people clue into all of the amazing properties that Bitcoin has, and buy some, I think eventually, as more and more adoption takes place, the price increases. So in the long term, it can be a very interesting investment opportunity. Of course, I recommend that everybody does their own research on it and understands it, but there's some really unique properties to Bitcoin that make it really special.
Was there a moment when you realized that Melrose PR could thrive in this space?
Yes, I was at a conference in Nashville, and there were all of these companies in blockchain that were, really changing industries like supply chain and healthcare. And there's so many reasons why this technology can create a better foundation, a more efficient network for so many different industries. And they really didn't know how to tell their stories about what they were doing. And so I thought, there's a really unique opportunity here to specialize. And also, there was such a small subset of reporters covering this technology. There was someone at Forbes and a couple, maybe one or two at Bloomberg. But for the most part, it was such an infant industry. And so there was only so many reporters, and I felt like we could get to know them all and what they wanted to, cover. And so that way I think it was just an opportunity to really specialize. And we were very early in hindsight. I think we're still early in this industry today.
I mean, and it takes a lot of courage.
Well, I think that as an entrepreneur, it's scary to turn away business too. And when we rebranded to just blockchain, we had to turn away a lot of opportunities because we were known for all sorts of things, right? But I really wanted to, focus in on this industry. And so that was a leap of faith. We rebranded our website, but we also, like, over the course of the next year, we had to turn down a lot of opportunities. And I think initially that's very scary, because if people want to work with you, you want to be able to say yes. And I think if you are known for one thing and are able to do it really well, you're going to be able to thrive. And in hindsight, that was one of the key moments in the journey that really catapulted us to a new category and level of success, where we're able to be, I mean, we're really good at one thing and one thing specifically and one industry specifically. So as opposed to be like dabbling in different industries.
I mean, even Coca-Cola doesn't have, isn't found in Whole Foods. So they also have their specific target audience. And it definitely is, as a new entrepreneur, to focus on one niche, but you did it and it paid off.
Thank you. It took a lot of time to figure that out. And then even within crypto, we're pretty specific about the types of businesses that we'll take on, surprisingly, because we are really good at, working with brands that have established thought leaders, and, we help them with a certain type of thing. And so when we sort of vet clients too, even to this day, to see if they are going to be a good fit for what we can do, because it's very specific.
So, how has your background in traditional PR influenced the way that you're working with crypto clients, Web3 clients?
Well, I think, PR has always been very relationship driven. So it's a matter of really helping our clients to understand what's possible through PR and what they need to bring to the table in order to be successful at it. Because we're helping with their big announcements, but we're also helping them get prepared for different types of opportunities, whether it's podcasts or broadcast opportunities. We do a lot of sourcing. We also have a lot of inbound from reporters we work with who are writing stories. So the crypto news cycle moves Every single day, there's a new storyline. And so what we do is we kind of help the reporters when they're writing their stories to get quotes from experts quickly. Sometimes the turnaround time is like 3 hours for, okay, we need to get this quote back to this reporter. They're writing their story. And it's kind of a speed game. And so we understand how these relationships work. We coach our clients on the process, educate them. Okay, here's what we need to get from you and how this is going to work. And then we also work with the reporters, and we're a resource for them, right? Because yes, when our clients have announcements, we're asking them for favors in covering those stories. But when they're writing the stories, we really want to be bringing value to all of our relationships, whether it's the clients or the reporters. And so we want to be a great resource for the reporters that we work with, so they know that we have all these amazing experts, at our disposal to be offer up quotes and help them understand what's happening in the news cycle. And, that's helpful for our clients too, because it's building their thought leadership through, being quoted in different articles.
What's one of the biggest challenges crypto and Web3 companies face when they're trying to build trust?
Well, I think crypto has a reputation problem in general. If you think back 2.5 years ago to SBF and the collapse of FTX, that's just one example of, when we first started in crypto, that was in 2016. And then in 2017, there was this rise of ICOs. I don't know if you remember, all these people were launching their own coins, and it was the Wild West in terms of the regulation landscape. And so when the SEC and other, agency, when basically the government was like, you can't do this anymore, we had to kind of crawl out of that hole initially. And then we've had this industry is very new. So while it's attracted incredible thinkers and people who want to change the world, it's also attracted, people who are kind of using this thing that nobody really knows and understands yet to take advantage of people. And so it's definitely an industry full of landmines in terms of like who to trust. And so building trust as a brand and building credibility in this industry is more important than ever. And, I think reputation building is a long game. You really have to, establish yourself and be a resource for these reporters. I think that's one way that a lot of the time we're setting up Zoom coffee chats between our clients and the reporters that we work with, just to establish kind of trust, to introduce them, to talk about their backgrounds. I mean, the other cool thing about this industry right now is that a lot of people who have had amazing careers in traditional finance and other industries are bringing their amazing wealth of experience to this new industry, and seeing how this technology could disrupt, the legacy, finance and different industries where this I think that it underpins it's like the layer of the internet that's very unsexy, blockchain. Eventually, hopefully, we'll be transacting and using systems built on blockchain, and you won't even know that that's the case. The way that we don't really understand the way the internet works, but we know that we're connected and we have access to information. And so hopefully one day that will be, that's sort of what we're building. So it's very foundational. But I think, these stories, the people, we need to build trust. So that's why having someone like us who's built trust and established ourselves with the reporters already is a helpful tool for these companies to kind of break in and introduce themselves.
So after you have these Zoom coffee chats with someone, how do you create, your founder's story? What are you listening for? How do you shape their message?
Well, it's really based on their backgrounds and what they can bring to the table. So we try to understand, two topics that never go away in the media are markets, because the market's always moving. So if there's anyone who has any background in understanding, okay, why did the market move in this direction, then we're always going to be able to use that as a hook to get them in. And then what we do is coach them how to get their sound bites and what they want to bring across. But we use that almost as a Trojan horse. Okay, they can talk about the price of Bitcoin moving today on CNBC, and then they can talk about, what else they're working on specifically, if that makes sense. And so really we try to help our clients, and the reporters understand what their backgrounds are and what they can help unpack, and then also help them to kind of place their little hooks into the story as well.
So now we've moved into a government that is pro Bitcoin. Has it made your job easier?
It's changed everything. I mean, one of the cool things too about this industry is that, as I mentioned many years ago, there was only a handful of reporters, especially in mainstream, publications that you and I have both, that everybody's heard of, like Forbes and Bloomberg and Wall Street Journal. Now there's full-time staff. Fortune has a whole section of their website dedicated to crypto. And so while we work a lot with the crypto trade publications that may or may not have heard of, like CoinDesk and Decrypt and Cointelegraph, Blockworks, The Block, there's a lot of industry specific publications. There's also lots of reporters that are full-time dedicated to covering Web3 and crypto within the mainstream media.
It reminds me of the Wild West of the internet, in the very, very beginning. And then now, they also had focused magazines speaking about the internet, Wired, Fast Company. Is that what you're seeing here too?
Completely. Yes. Yes. And because the industry has been very volatile, there's been major expansions and major contractions. We've seen publications evolve, and we've seen certain startup publications kind of shutter, and then we've seen other ones expand and come, Blockworks is I would say newer, but they're really up and coming and really providing great value to the industry. So it's, you have to kind of keep an eye on what's going on with these publications. The other thing that's been happening in our industry too with the publications specifically is that they've been they are now owned by different entities within crypto. So you kind of have to understand the nature of who owns these properties, because it's going to impact the stories that they're writing and what they want to cover. And so it's very nuanced, if that makes sense. And I don't know if that was happening when Wired and Fast Company and all of those publications were in their infancy, but like the owners of those entities, like, it's interesting because there's been like a crypto VC firm owns one of the entities, another crypto exchange owns another media entity, and kind of, I think they own it for power, obviously, because they own the media in the space, but it's kind of, it's important for our team to be aware of who owns what, right? Because when you're pitching certain stories, you want to be aware of that.
Maybe it's similar to the companies that are part of American Dairy Association, right?
Probably.
Right? Yeah. So they have a certain lens that they want to take a topic.
Yes.
So you're also the host of Proof of PR. What inspired you to launch your podcast?
So my podcast has actually evolved over the years. We launched it as Crypto Token Talk, and the inspiration was I was having so many amazing conversations with different founders and people in the crypto space, and there were so few podcasts covering crypto at the time that I wanted to record the conversations. And so we had a few seasons, I believe, of Crypto Token Talk. And then cut to many years later, there's crypto podcasts are a dime a dozen. And so it felt almost inauthentic to be having, a generic crypto podcast. And so we rebranded to what I know and love, which is PR and marketing in the crypto space. So it's very, very niche. And I interview reporters in our sector, and I interview marketing folks and PR professionals, other agency owners, to really talk specifically about PR and marketing in our industry. So it's very niche, but it's been such an amazing tool. I've made so many great relationships through the conversations that I've had on the podcast, and I just love doing it.
Was there a conversation on your show that really stayed with you or impacted you?
So we have an agency that we work with in tandem a lot, Greenbrier. They are a crisis comms agency in crypto. As you can imagine, in crypto, you kind of have to know how to handle a crisis. And Abram, that episode is just so tactical for anyone who's running, wanting to know what's the playbook for, I get myself in a pickle here, and how do I, approach this situation. And he's so articulate about how to navigate crises. And so conversations with him and others who are just true professionals in their area of expertise is just so fun to learn about.
Yes, they've definitely seen their peaks and their valleys.
Well, and in that situation, we had worked on a couple of clients together that have, I'll leave them unnamed, but we've been through in crypto, there's crises, right? There's been some situations that you couldn't have predicted. And so it's important to have, those partners in place. And I mean, we do a little bit of crisis comms. We have to, we are a communications agency, but we don't specialize specifically in crisis. We're not really staffed for the 24/7 support that a crisis requires too. So, it's more like we're more overall brand building. Brands have worked with us for years, which I'm really proud of, but less so coming in to sort of like diffuse a situation over a 2-week period. And that's where we often tap Greenbrier for their expertise in that.
Would he recommend something like just a short statement and, not focus on it and just try to just wait it out? Like what's a good tactic if you are experiencing a crisis?
Well, a lot of the time he recommends having a playbook set up ahead of time so that if certain things happen, then you run through the scenarios. Because to your point, oftentimes it is more helpful to kind of do nothing and let the situation diffuse on its own. But there are circumstances which require a statement or being proactive. And so having that all kind of approved ahead of time is really helpful. So what he says is we like to do a lot of the work and have it all ready to go and then never use it. Like best case scenario, we never have to use all of that work. That's all been approved, but it's good to have it ready.
That is so having a contingency plan always,
Exactly.
which we have, like when we were in the fires, like both of us evacuated from the fires because of the Palisades fire. And it's nice that you're back in Southern California.
It's, I'm so happy to be back. It feels so good to be back home. And yes, you just like life throws you these situations and you just have to adapt. And I think it was such a blessing to be able to reconnect with you specifically. I loved the fact that we ended up in the same hotel for many weeks.
Like the lushest hotel in Santa Monica.
I know, I want to move back in.
It was so fun. And it was at that, conversation, just I think we saw each other at the valet and you were telling me about BitWire. So tell me a little bit, it is such a bold move. What gap did you see in the industry that made you want to create it?
Well, we've been a customer as Melrose of Newswires for many years, since we started the agency. On the day that our clients have news that goes live, our goal is to generate earned media stories, so organic stories, but our clients typically want to have somewhere official that they can post their own official statement, their press release or announcement that has quotes from them, and it's the approved, they're the source of truth. And listen, you could post these types of pieces of content on your own blog, but it's nice to have a recognized brand pick up the story. And so we've been a customer of PR Newswire and Business Wire for many years. And there was just reasons that we kept getting frustrated because oftentimes my team would just share one link. Like they would pull one link, we'd pay for all these syndications, this long tail of publishers for this piece of news. You put it on a Newswire platform and it's distributed all over the place. But what I observed was that our clients really only cared about one high quality link that they could share. And Google, when we first started this 13 years ago, cared about syndication. So Google favored when you had multi-syndications. And so the Newswire business was built for that Google algorithm to be able to say, okay, here's the statement. It's on all these different publications. And at the time, reporters used it too as a tool where they could, search for news stories and whatnot. Today, it's really used as like the stamp of here's my official statement. And what our clients care about is that quality of the publisher that, they can then share on their LinkedIn or share back to their networks that has their official statement on the day that news goes live. And then our clients specifically wanted something in crypto that they could share. So the crypto publishers that we talked about before, whether it's CoinDesk or Cointelegraph, they wanted to have a placement like that they could share in, with their audience. Because a lot of the time our clients' audiences are very crypto native. So they're looking to attract talent or developers. And so that audience is reading those crypto trade publications. And so those are incredibly important to their audience, and they want to use that. So essentially, we got frustrated with the user friendliness of the Newswire tools out there, and we really wanted a quality over quantity distribution channel and something that was transparent, because the other thing that wasn't clear to us was where it was going to go. They said, okay, one of these hundreds of places. And we really wanted to know with confidence that, okay, if we're paying for this, that we're going to get what we say that we're going to get. And so BitWire was really built out of our own frustration. And my aha moment was the name. I love, I came up with the name BitWire, and we chased down the domain bitwire.com and built the business from scratch over the past year. And I was naive. I believed that it was going to be a very easy sort of 2-month build or something like that. And we've been in development for a year now, really to perfect, to build an app from scratch that aims to really be a better process for the end customer and to provide that transparency that's so lacking in the Newswire business today. And so we're never going to have a long tail of lots of different publishers. We're going to offer, very targeted groups of publishers as our offering that you can choose. Okay, I only care about one high quality link. Our base package is just AP News, Associated Press. And so if that's all that matters to you, that's available. And, we've made it at an approachable price point, $350. So you're not having to spend thousands of dollars on all these links that you may not even care about. Now, if you want to just go direct, you can.
And I love the branding of it.
Thank you. We had fun. Shout out to Valeria from the BitWire team, because she really believes that great design goes a long way. And so we were very thoughtful about the branding.
Yeah, it's very approachable, but still substantial.
Thank you. And it's got some fun, unexpected delights. I don't know if you poked around the site, but we have like golden whales and monkeys and things like that make it a little bit unexpected and delightful. And that's really the whole point of the ethos of BitWire, is to take something that's very boring and very standard, make it transparent and even fun. And also to give you your time back, because it shouldn't take 30 minutes to schedule a Newswire press release. It should take 5. And so we aim to basically provide that back to the agencies and the comms professionals that this tool is built for. It's like, make it fun, make it fast, and let you go on with your day.
Exactly. And as a former journalist, I can really appreciate that, because I also used, PR and Newswire to get our press releases out. And, I used to work at Bloomberg too, so and CNBC, so I can fully understand just, the business journalism aspect of it. And I just thought immediately, as soon as you told me the idea, like, what a great idea. Where do you see BitWire going?
Well, it's fun because the reception from the publishers has also been they're all over this, because they also want to be grouped with other quality publishers. So I think that this industry, or the Newswire business, was ripe for disruption. And listen, there may still be customers who want the long tail of publishers. That exists, and you can go elsewhere, but we aim to provide a different type of tool that's just quality. And so while crypto is our first vertical, because that's where our clients are and where our relationships lie, there's no reason that we couldn't, once we have this perfected, repeat this for other industry verticals and build it out with other quality, if you think about other industries like real estate development, for example, they're constantly putting out announcements when, land deals are acquired, and, so there's different industry verticals that we could expand within, but we aim to really, create, to be honest, we haven't even gone out and marketed BitWire at all. It's really just been word of mouth to Melrose customers and then Melrose network. And the response has been, we almost can't keep up with the volume that we have right now. It's amazing. In crypto, there's ecosystems. So there's blockchains that, there's Bitcoin, there's Ethereum, there's other blockchains too. And they have their own ecosystem of app developers building on top of their blockchains. And so these ecosystems, they like to market all of their amazing developers on top, like they like to show love to all the development happening on their blockchain. And so what we've observed is those are our best customers. They are purchasing packs of 50 and 100 press releases, and then they're, basically giving that to their ecosystem to be able to promote what they're doing. So it's really cool. We've tapped into something very unique, and the customers so far are loving it. And we're also in a very global industry. We're a very US based business, and that's refreshing because I think a lot of the people that we work with are not used to having access to humans in regular time zones to be able to help them with things. And so it's very white glove and friendly. And I think our ethos is just to be helpful and to provide great service.
Well, besides being a serial entrepreneur, a podcast host, you are also a mom with how many kids? Three?
Yes, three little kids.
How do you do it all? It's a question that, people always ask me, but I'm going to ask the same question about you.
Well,
I
when I first met you, I was so inspired by you because you were a mom of two little darling girls, and now they're grown up and in college, or almost in college and in college. And I'm following in your footsteps, I feel like. But, it's really, I think being a mom has made me such a better professional and boss, and because you have to prioritize your time and your energy. I know you know this really well. And it's so important. So I've learned how to delegate, find people that I trust and, empower, and then, focus on the things that are worthy of my time and attention, and not sweat the small stuff. Because as a mom, like, there's always unexpected things that are happening and you just have to roll with it. And so, and it's my dream. It was always my dream to be a mother too. So I feel so grateful that I get to maintain my career and work with amazing people. Working gives me so much purpose. I enjoy it so much, but so does being a mom. And so it's nice that I get to do both, but I also have a very supportive, hands-on husband and, two different nannies who we adore. And so it takes a village. I'm not doing it single-handedly by any means.
But you definitely have the vision of how you want it to play out. Like I loved how when we were at the hotel, you were like, I think we're gonna go to Jackson Hole. And you were gone for like a couple months. Tell us about that.
Well, being in a hotel with kids, well, I think if it was just my husband and I, it would have been just delightful. It's, after a certain amount of time, I just wanted to feel settled and have a kitchen and washer dryer and all the creature comforts of home. And the vibe here after the fire, as you know, was just, there were a lot of, it's really tricky to navigate because I felt like we were in this very fortunate camp of people whose homes did not burn down. And yet we still couldn't go home. And so I know you're still not home. And so it was just energetically very sad. And, the empath in me wanted to just help the people who had lost everything. It's so heartbreaking. Our preschool burned down, and so many families were hurting. And after a certain period of time, I felt like we had to put on our own life jacket and we had to do what was right for our family. And there was no end in sight to when we were going to be able to come back. And so I just felt, and really it had a lot to do with family because my family was going to be there and everyone was visiting. My dad lives out there in Wyoming. And so it just felt like during this kind of crisis situation, let's go try something new for a couple of months and see how it goes, be closer to family, and, and have fun and make it an adventure. And then best case scenario, which played out, is that we get to go home after that. And if not, then we'll reassess. But it really was the best decision. And I'm so grateful we were able to do that. And my husband actually had a career shift back in November that was unexpected. And had it not been for that, we wouldn't have been able to go because he was going into an office every day. And so, I think the universe has a greater plan. I really believe in that and I trust in that. And it was such a gift that time.
Oh, I love seeing your Instagram stories on the ski slope with all the kids. Oh my gosh, what a joy.
It
Oh,
was so fun. It was my husband's dream, really. It was amazing.
oh. And so now you're working with your husband. How has that been? And share. I'd love to hear.
Well, so yeah, my husband is helping to run BitWire. I was like, I have two jobs plus three kids, so help. And he has been amazing. We're super yin and yang, like different, but and the BitWire team has really been very accepting of him coming in, and he's just added so much value because he's very methodical, and he's been able to triage all of the app development team and the design team and the sales team. And so it's been wonderful. He's been, in real estate development his whole career. So he's got a background in sort of making order out of chaos. And I think that he's set up structures to make this business really function well. And he's so proud of the app design part. He gets so excited to show me all the cool new developments and how he's made it better. And so I think it's really going very well, but it's a work in progress because we never actually worked together before this. So we're learning how to navigate that part of our relationship, but we built an amazing life together. We've renovated 2 homes together. We've had 3 children together. We've been married over 10 and a half years. So, it just continues to evolve. And who knows, like, this may not be forever, but right now he's been such a gift to the BitWire project and allowed me to really, again, like, peel back and empower them to build something so great. I had the vision and I have an idea of how I want it to be, and he's executing. So I know EO, like, you're big in like EOS and all these systems. He's very much like the executor.
Exactly.
The integrator, I think it's called.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. The integrator. And what's great is that you both have your own lanes.
Yes.
And you're not cutting each other off.
Yes. Yes.
So, what is a lesson that you've had to learn the hard way as a founder?
So many, of course. I think I'm getting better about just knowing that everything happens for a reason, not taking things personally in business at all, and empowering people to make their own decisions and maybe mistakes and do things differently, and just really giving like total responsibility transfer. And then one thing that's been hard for me as a human being, as a founder, is when you really pour into your team and then eventually they want to do something else. And that has happened. I mean, I have a handful of team members that have been with me for a very long time, which I'm super grateful. I know that's true for you as well. And then there's other ones too, that you grow this relationship in work and you pour into them. And then eventually it's time for them to go. And what I've learned now is never take that personally, always be happy for them, always, understand that that's, whatever's best for them is best for you and for the business. And, not let that be such an earth-shattering moment, because it's inevitable. And so people are going to come, people are going to go, and that's totally okay. And we now, because I've stepped into that energy and not taking things personally, which took me a long time, because it's, I love people and I love the people that I work with. And so it's sad when the relationship has to change. But I use the word change because there's been a couple of occasions now where people, team members from Melrose have gone on to other places, and then they've hired Melrose, or we're working with them at a different capacity, or they become customers of BitWire. And so you just never know. I think if you can kind of just be truly authentically, and again, it took me a long time, but really be happy for someone and understand that, like, it's their life, and that whatever's best for them is going to be best for the greater good of everyone. That energy has like brought in so many more opportunities,
Yeah,
but that's hard. It's hard.
I'm the same. In the very beginning, when I guess one of my employees, I think, got hired from USC, because I guess USC was one of our clients. Like, it was so disappointing,
Yes.
but you have to let them soar.
Yes. Well, especially when it's something sensitive like that, where, maybe that's a little bit against the ethics of the, but I've navigated that on a few different occasions, and it's best to just energetically understand that it's like for the greater good of everybody involved. I mean, within reason, I think it's also important to, if someone, to call something out that may not be right if it in the moment. I'm not saying, but because you don't want to be bulldozed, but also to just be happy for everyone in your heart, especially if you care about the people on a personal level, and maintain the relationships, because you just never know what's going to come back around.
Exactly. And so, with that, for founders who found a great product or a great service, but they're struggling to communicate it, what's the first step you'd suggest that they take?
Well, really whiteboarding out what they're looking to, I think understanding, okay, what's the hook and what's the elevator pitch and how can I get this across quickly? It's taken me a long time with that, even with BitWire, because I was so in the weeds. I was the customer, so I understood the problem really intimately, but bringing in other people into the fold, it takes a few reps of kind of explaining the problem to understand what's going to land with people. And so, I think you constantly have to be, practicing and understanding what is going to land and how can I do that in a very succinct way to bring them in. And then if they ask more questions, you can get, deeper. But I think it's important to understand, okay, what's the hook? And I remember years ago, Kalika, do you remember when we worked with remedies we went to,
Yes.
and we came up with a great tagline? Let me see, remedies. Do you remember the tagline?
It was something with the smell. It was that the odor thing in the shoe,
Yes,
right? Yeah,
yes.
okay. We have to
It'll come to me. It'll come to me. But like basically being able to dial down the messaging into just a nugget so that people can take that nugget, I think is really important. In any kind of, in order to get people, there's such a limited window of attention that you have with anybody. And so it's important to be able to bring them in. And then once you draw them in, you can answer their questions deeper, but not go into a long-winded elevator pitch.
But I think what's good is actually having someone like you help them, is because it's hard for an entrepreneur to have a sounding board, right? They don't even know if it sounds right, if they're saying it. Like, it sounds great to them, but when they're practicing, it sounds awful.
Well, it's interesting. We went through this process. We went through a rebrand as Melrose last year when, we launched the brand of BitWire and really wanted the design and branding of Melrose to match. And so we actually opted to hire an agency to do it with us because it's helpful to have it's hard